Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the MBOM podcast. I am so excited that you've decided to join me for today's episode of the show. Today on the podcast, I am super excited for this special episode with Victoria Lovering. Victoria is a customer success specialist at Punchpass. And if you guys have been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I've been partnered with Punchpass for a while now, and it's a company that I really love. I think there's lots of great software programs out there for yoga teachers, and Punchpass is a really, really awesome option. They are a small business and they work with other small businesses, and they have lots of different options for yoga teachers as well as for studio owners. And I've been talking back and forth with the team at Punchpass quite a bit over the last couple of weeks about how things have been going during COVID-19, and they were sharing with me some of the success stories that they've experienced from studio owners that use their software. And so Victoria and I hopped on a call to talk a little bit about her story, her journey, how she got started with Punchpass, and then to share a little bit about the success that the yoga studios that she's been working with have had. And I also work with a couple of yoga studios doing digital marketing and studio management, and I share a little bit in this episode about how those studios are doing. And honestly, it has been such a crazy, wild time. Turning a studio online with very little notice is a ton of work, but it has been so worth it for the response that we've gotten and to be able to keep the yoga communities together. So if you are a yoga teacher wanting to learn more about how the studio side of things works, or hear how studios have been successful, or if you are a studio owner who feels a bit uncertain in this crazy online world and needs some tips or tricks or tools or advice or just a little bit of motivation, I think that you will love this episode of the show. And although we're going to talk about Punchpass primarily throughout this episode, if you are using other software, you can, of course, still run your yoga business online. All right, so I hope that you really enjoy this episode of the show. And before we dive in, just a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Offering Tree. When you're a yoga teacher and you're trying to build your digital presence, it can be daunting, especially right now when you are trying to take your offerings online as fast as possible. Offering Tree set out to make creating your digital presence fun, easy, and affordable. With one account, you can create a website in minutes that has your schedule built right in. They also have email marketing tools to collect email addresses, send newsletters, and automated emails to your subscribers. It all works seamlessly together with one account and one subscription. Forget spending all your time and energy just trying to remember what account does what and what your login information is. On top of that, Offering Tree has an embedded scheduling feature, so if you already have a website that you love, you can use it for online payments and scheduling. They have also just announced that they now have Stripe integration so that people from Canada, the UK, Australia, and 30 plus countries can accept payments using Offering Tree. This is something that a lot of people have been asking for, and it is finally live. So that is super exciting. To learn more about what Offering Tree can do for your digital presence, visit offeringtree.com/MBOM. Offering Tree has been supporting MBOM for over a year now, and I not only love the product, but I also love the people. And Offering Tree is also providing special pricing for MBOM listeners. So be sure to visit offeringtree.com/MBOM to receive your discount. Victoria, welcome to the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you here with me.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this conversation and to dive into a little bit of, teaching online, the success stories you've seen through working with Punchpass and all that good stuff. But I want to back up and just hear a little bit about your yoga story and what got you interested in yoga.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up dancing, the ballet class, the pink shoes, everything to do with that from like age 3 through 17. And then, once I graduated college and I was starting working, I was really missing just having any kind of physical outlet. Stretching and flexibility has always been a huge part of my life from the dance background. And I found a local yoga studio, really just room enough for about, under 10 people. And I started checking it out, started to kind of, yeah, really get involved and in touch with the breath, the meditation, the movement. And, it was always a really nice outlet whenever work got a little crazy. You could kind of just let that all go and really focus on the here, the now, the present. And that's been so important to me in my in my life. Whenever anything's sort of going on, the fact that you can kind of settle back in and find a break in the everyday by going to yoga. It's been really helpful for me for my mental health, and I think a lot of people find that a huge benefit to doing yoga.
Amazing. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that as well. And I always really love just hearing like what connects people to the practice and kind of makes them passionate about working in this industry and in this space. And I'd be curious to know kind of your journey finding Punchpass. Like, how did you end up in the role that you're in today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was doing online training and in-person training for software with a bigger corporation outside the industry, and I was really looking for a change of pace, especially culture-wise. I was really looking for something that maybe a startup or something that felt like they were really interested in a new process. When things are done the same way and people just say, oh, that's just how we have always done it, and no one wants to make any changes or innovate, I was just kind of feeling stuck. And I started looking for a way to do software training and get involved in that with a company that felt a little bit more forward thinking. And that's how I stumbled upon Punchpass in my job hunt. And I was so excited. My first job was the running the front desk at my dance studio, where again, that's kind of again how I got into physical activity, and that was really always my connection to that. So I was pretty familiar with things like using an outdated system to sign in students and take check payments. And I was definitely familiar with why someone might be looking for a better option out there. So I was like excited to hear about Punchpass. Everything I read about in interviews about how they started the business from sort of just realizing that the way that people manage their yoga studios and fitness studios can be really outdated and just causing so much extra work. And I, having been taking yoga, having experienced the dance studio, I thought, yeah, no one who starts their yoga business or their fitness business is thinking, I really want to spend a lot of time learning software. That's not why you get into the business. So I completely understood their culture and their interest and sort of their goals in providing the software, and I was super excited. And I think that came across when I met with Chris and Sharon for the first time, and they were. I was lucky enough to get asked to come on board. So I've been working for about a year and a half with Punchpass now, and it's every day I'm talking to yoga studio owners and other people in the industry who run their business, and I help them get onboarded. And it's talking to the best people I could in a customer service role. It's such a fun time. So it's been a really fun journey, and I've kind of loved every minute of it.
Amazing. I love hearing that. And I think you touched on something that's so important and something that I experience also is like so many yoga teachers don't get into teaching yoga because they're passionate about software or websites or business in
Oh yeah.
general, really. It's one of the
It's
reasons that
not.
I've,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. It's not about a lot of studios aren't started by people who went to business school and are like, I really think that this is the right market, and I've studied all these things. It's mostly people who just are so passionate about what they do and they want to offer it and own their own business and manage their own time. And it's inspiring to talk to the people. But yeah, you're right. It's not usually because they want to use software and get into the technology of it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think even for myself, like, having a business background, I don't think I ever consciously thought about like, oh, I'm going to get my teacher training and become a business owner. I feel like I was more like, oh, I went to business school. I had a corporate job. I don't like this. I'm passionate about yoga. Let me totally switch gears. So if anything, I feel like I was almost like, let me get out of this like corporate business world. And then I entered the yoga teaching world and was like, oh, my business degree is coming in very handy
It's
right now.
really helpful. I completely understand. I'm sure that wasn't, yeah, not what you're expecting, but it ended up clearly working out for you. But yeah, that's not what a lot of people have as a background when they move to instructing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that most listeners are probably familiar with Punchpass. I have been partnered with Punchpass for a while now. It's a software company that I really love. But for those people who this is a new software that they've never heard of before, can you just give listeners an overview of what Punchpass is all about, what you guys do, who you kind of target, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So Punchpass is a fully online class management system. We started out pretty small, a startup out of Burlington, Vermont. And we now serve yoga studios, fitness studios globally. We have a team of 6 members. So we're a small business, but we're really active and flexible in adding new features to our site. So people can run their in person classes, their online classes, run payments, track attendance, offer discounts. Really, anything to do with their class management can be done online through Punchpass.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear about that. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm kind of curious, we've been in this global pandemic for nearly 2 months now, I guess at this point, which is really, really wild. I'd love to hear kind of like what your experience has been just over the last couple of months in terms of your clients. Because just speaking personally, I work with a couple yoga studios and we basically turned the yoga studios to online studios and, 24 to 36 hours, which was a ton of work. And then also working with yoga teachers who are doing similar things with their own businesses. So I'd be curious to know, like, if we back up just a little bit, WHO says, hits the button on we're in a pandemic with COVID-19. What was that like for like you and your team in terms of supporting the yoga teachers you work with and the yoga studio owners?
Yeah, it was a lot of change really quickly. So luckily, and every day we talk about this. We're so glad our founder Chris on really early. I mean, before it was officially a pandemic, we had kind of been talking about, I think we should start looking into online options. And we actually ended up launching online class capabilities on March 13th. So, really, pretty early before a lot of states, including my state, Maine, we were not in any shelter in place. There weren't any restrictions at that time, but there were a lot of places and a lot of people that we supported that really needed that functionality right away. So March 13th, we launched the ability to run online classes. We launched direct integration with Zoom on March 18th. So that first week and the weeks after that really were really busy. In our chat, we actually took a look and we had about 3 times more the amount of chat in our support than we do in a regular month for March. So it was a lot of support. It was a lot of people reaching out and saying, how do I do this? What do I do? So we launched the capabilities. We always include, support articles and how-to videos when we launch new features. And then we also, on March 19th, had a webinar that I hosted, which was really well attended. A lot of people looking to say, can I talk to somebody or see somebody actually walk through the process? So we did that and recorded that, and we still have that available online. And really, it's just been being able to make the features available as quickly as possible when we realize that there's a need, and talking through it with our instructors, because they're all going, that's completely new to them. And so luckily we've been using Zoom for a while since we're a remote company, and that's how we chat and meet face to face when we live in different countries. But it's a totally different process when you're running a class. And there were a lot of questions people had about how do we run music, if if that's a really important part of their practice. And so we had a lot of crash course in using Zoom and testing out features in Zoom. And then, how did it work with Punchpass, and how could we make people jump on board with it really quickly? And luckily, a lot of people did. We've had a lot of really exciting success stories from our customers who just said, you know what, it doesn't look like we're going to be back in class anytime soon, and we need to keep that community going. We need to keep our practices going. So it was really busy, but it was but it was an exciting time too. It was awesome that we didn't have to tell people, you're out of luck, you have to close right now, you can't do anything through us. And so we were excited to make that a possibility for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so inspiring to hear. And you and I were chatting before I hit record on this, and we've both been really busy, and I just feel like I've one of the blessings I've been counting as I go to sleep or in my morning practice each day has been that I'm able to work in an industry that can go online, because massage therapists, hairdressers, so many people who work in the arts and even wellness space, like gyms and stuff, like lots of those people can't work with their clients right now. And I feel like the fact that we can transition online is amazing, first of all. And I think it's also, obviously, this is a really unfortunate situation, and it's been a challenging situation, but I think it's also provided, I think, a lot of yoga teachers with this confidence that they can teach online. Like people who before were totally intimidated by video or by audio or had never used Zoom in their life are now like, oh, I can reach clients in all corners of the country or all corners of the world, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple people. I mean, honestly, before this happened, we haven't had a huge push from our clients to move online. I think people really love that personal connection. And that's been a huge part of what we've supported, is saying, there's so much online, and isn't it nice that we can get together and have that personal connection in person? When you take these classes, it's what a lot of people are looking for. But obviously we couldn't have seen this situation and the need to really be able to manage this online. So when it became obvious that we had to do it, it was definitely a learning curve for everybody, including us. But it's so amazing to see what people have done. The way that, I mean, some people who haven't necessarily seen a lot of uptick in their business lately, we've heard from them that they've had all of these past customers who've moved away come back in and join, and are so excited to be able to take classes at their old studio again. So there's definitely this, it doesn't necessarily feel the same, but it still feels like you can confidently offer this, and also, have that connection. Even if we can't have the person-to-person connection, it's adding something that people are probably missing a lot right now. And I think that the ability to do that confidently and feel comfortable with the technology is amazing. I'm so impressed by the way people have just been so flexible and jumped on board.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And yeah, I've definitely, as a yoga teacher and a practitioner myself, I think there's something really amazing about the community environment. And I think the fact that we, are required to be physically distancing right now, I think it's cool to be able to see these communities come online, and, these studios and teachers who have never taught online before just really embracing the current situation. And one of the things I would love to talk about is to hear from some of the, I guess, the success stories that you've seen within the clients of Punchpass, and just talk a little bit about like what they're doing with their studio, what their strategies kind of been, and then what kind of results they've had with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done a few profiles on people who've reached out to us and have said, this has been going really great, and it's really just changed their business. The one of the businesses that we work with is Hot Yoga Burlington in Burlington, Vermont, which is where our founder is located. So there's a little bit of a personal connection. He felt comfortable reaching out and saying that, they made the decision to switch on a Monday evening. They decided, we're going to go online. We're going to go and offer online classes. And they started offering, they did a week of free classes. And that was important to them. They wanted their customers to feel comfortable and confident in the access, in the feeling, and realize that it was worth the effort and it's worth the pricing. So by getting a little more traction with offering a couple of free classes as they got started, they had, I mean, within 3 days they had more than 500 people attend classes. So it ended up working out really well to them because they got involved really quick. They launched it, they promoted it really quickly, and they found a lot of success and have been really excited about this option. And we're hearing from a lot of people who are saying, similar to Hot Yoga Burlington, that this might be something they want to offer even after the situation is over with social distancing and people can go back to their regular in studio classes. They're thinking about keeping some of these online classes going because they are able to connect with others, and that's been really, really beneficial for them. One of the other stories I think is really awesome and inspiring is from Hot 26 School of Yoga. They're in the Seattle area, and in Washington State was hit really hard pretty early on. And so they had to really scramble to get going pretty quickly. But they felt, I mean, so Emily Henderson is the owner of Hot 26 School of Yoga in Washington. And she felt that with the community feeling the way it was, with so many people, knowing people who were experiencing the sickness and kind of going through the difficulty of dealing with that in a pretty tight-knit community, she just felt like, I mean, similar to the way that yoga helps people in a lot of different ways, but especially with mental health, being able to offer classes was a necessity. It wasn't really an option for them. They felt like they had to go online. And they just started, they picked up an iPad and just started going with it. And they've been doing their classes in their studio. So they have the instructor go to the studio. And that's been working out for them because they wanted to keep the feel consistent. Not everyone's able to do that, but for them, it was something that they felt was really powerful to make people feel like, the studio is still there. It's going to be there for them when they come back, but it's now something that they can, still do online and give people that kind of support and the feeling that they look for when they come to classes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love hearing those stories. And I think I work with 2 different yoga studios. One is in Alberta, where I'm from in Canada. The other one is just outside of DC in the Northern Virginia area. And both of them have set up their studio spaces with obviously, distancing protocols and cleaning protocols and stuff to make sure that they can continue to do that, but set it up so that the teachers can go teach from one space so that the teachers haven't had to stress as much about the technological aspect of it. It's like there's one setup. We know that the video's good, the audio's good, the lighting's good because we've got those spaces set up, and that's been working really well. I have a yoga teacher client who teaches, and she's in New York State, and because New York City has obviously been hit so hard by this virus, she's actually not allowed to go to the studios. The studios aren't allowed to be doing stuff like that. So she's set up like a mini yoga studio in her home, and she's been streaming her classes from there. So it's incredible to hear how people are doing different things.
Yeah. And I think that's what's nice is that, people are flexible. And especially right now, I think people are really giving a lot more leeway to maybe if they're having an issue with setting up the video, they might have to close out and come back into the meeting. Everyone's internet is different. The ability to access their space is different, as you said, depending on where they're located. But I think because people are looking for something to do, right? Some activity, something they can do, especially with something they can do in their own home. If the instructor's teaching yoga and their cat walks past the camera, I've watched a few of those things happen. And honestly, it's fun. It's a fun thing when the unexpected aspects of life might come into the class. We're all kind of experiencing that right now, where you've seen, the newscast where someone's kid walks behind them because they're on Zoom. I mean, it's fine. It's great. Anything you can do, every little bit, every little thing that you can do and be active and help out in your community is worth it. And so, right, if you can make it so that the lighting is really nice, that's awesome. You feel confident about your space, that's awesome. If you're doing it in your hallway and occasionally your kids walk by, that's great too. I think people are very understanding and flexible right now.
Yeah, that's definitely been my experience too, working with a couple of studios, is that, in general, people seem like very grateful that they can continue their yoga practice and they can see their yoga friends, once a day or a couple times a week still, even though it's still just via a computer screen. And it seems like overall people are, they find those like little moments endearing. I think one of the things that supporting these studios I've found a bit challenging have been, the various complications, like, Zoom changes their security protocol a couple weeks into this.
On a
And
Saturday. Yes, they did that on a Saturday, which was really, really nice.
thanks, shout out Zoom. I love you, but it was
We
not a
love you,
fan of
but
that
the
situation.
the timing wasn't great. I mean, and certainly they've been under an incredible amount of support requests. Even if you're partnering with them, you're not necessarily getting a heads up on any changes that they're making. So it's made us all a little bit flexible when it comes to technology. And yeah, we were on chats with a lot of people trying to figure out, all of the changes that Zoom made. And luckily we had been always adding saying, hey, just in case, if anything happens and you need a password, you get the password. So people had it as a backup, even if the setting wasn't forcing the password. So luckily that didn't impact too many of our users, but it was definitely an unexpected surprise. So yeah, we're all kind of getting used to that happening occasionally, but it does seem like it's become so much more normal at this point. And as you said, 2 months is a long time, but it's not that long. Especially to completely change the way you run your business and your classes. So it's amazing how quickly people have adapted and gotten comfortable with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I was kind of thinking, I've been working online for 4.5, almost 5 years, and you think that I'd be prepared for all of this stuff, yet this is stuff I have never had to do before. And, I was familiar with Zoom prior to this. I use it for, we're on it right now recording this podcast. I've used it for the coaching programs that I've done over the last couple of years, yet I've never had to run a yoga class from there or figure out the logistics of a studio putting their classes through that and how we get everyone the information. And, if there's people listening who are kind of haven't started teaching online yet and they're feeling like a little bit weary of it, hopefully these stories can encourage people. But I'm also curious if you can kind of walk people through like a bit of what the process looks like for turning your studio online based on what you've seen from your clients. Like you've mentioned that they're mostly using Zoom. Is there a way that they're getting the links out to people and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So with our system and in Punchpass, you can, on any of our plans, sign up if you have a Zoom account, and it can be a free Zoom account. If you have a Zoom account, you can directly link. We have an integrations area in our settings, and people can just click to connect to Zoom, and they connect to their account. So they provide access between Zoom and Punchpass. And once they do that, they can go to their regular class schedule, click on any of their classes, and select to turn it into an online Zoom class. What that does in our system is it automatically creates the meeting in Zoom based on the class settings. So if the class is at 5:30 p.m., it automatically sets the meeting to start at 5:30 p.m. And then it creates the link and the password, and that's connected in our system. So whenever a customer goes in and they click to book and they book the class, they'll get an email notification confirming that they registered, and that will include the Zoom link and password. And we also have a reminder email that goes out about 20 to 30 minutes before the class that also includes the link and the password, because everyone's got a lot of emails coming in, and it's good to remind everyone and make it easy for them to find. So really for the customer, their process is pretty much the same. They look at the schedule, they click the class they want to book, they click to reserve, And then the only difference is they'll just check their email and click to join the class. So we've made it, hopefully, and from what our feedback has been, we've made it pretty easy for transitioning the class and for making the process fairly similar to the way that they've normally done it. The only big difference is the actual class, and as we've said, setting up the camera. And luckily, we have a lot of devices that can do that. Zoom works on mobile phones, so even if you just have a phone, if you don't have a computer, you can still run a class.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. I love how much integration, Punchpass has been able to do with Zoom. It sounds like you've made it very easy for people on the administrative side, which as somebody who works on the administrative side for two studios is obviously very much appreciated.
Yeah.
I'm not sure in terms of like the other softwares that are out there that other people might be using, how they've integrated, but it seems
Yeah.
like most
Well,
people are using Zoom
yeah, I
as the
would say a
software for
lot
their.
of people, majority are using Zoom, which is great. But we do have a few people who are using other tools. Vimeo is a service that, and they have live event streaming, which I think we've had a few users migrate to. And if you're not, what's nice about Punchpass is if you're not integrated directly with Zoom, you have the option to add a link to the class. So you can set it to be online. And then if you create a meeting in any other tool, like I said, like Vimeo or Skype, any other, options outside of Zoom, you can just add the link to the class. And the process will be the same for the customer. It's just using a different system. A little bit more involved because you have to create the meeting in that system first. It's not directly integrated, but it's still a really easy process. And for anyone who's looking to use something other than Zoom, we definitely support that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I guess there's Vimeo. I've had a couple yoga teachers who are doing YouTube, so streaming online, and then
Yep.
it saves their videos after. That's been more like yoga teachers as opposed to yoga studios. Yoga studios, I feel like from what I've experienced, have been mostly using Zoom since Zoom integrates really nicely into the software. And then, it also just makes it so it's more of that like private, intimate experience as opposed to anyone just joining.
Yeah. And I think what's nice, I mean, one of the things I really like about it is that people have been giving a little time, maybe before or after the class, to let people chat. During the class and during practice, you're probably muting most of the attendees, and maybe people use the chat if they have questions, or unmute themselves if they have a question. But it's nice. One of the things that you might be missing out on the real experience is the chat, is the saying hi to each other, checking in. And so, yeah, we've had a few users really add a little extra time, usually in the beginning of class, so everyone can turn on their video and their audio and say hi and have that moment of connection, which, yeah, has been definitely an important part of the way our studios are keeping their community connected.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That time has been like really integral in my experience also, that 5 minutes before and 5 or 10 minutes after, depending on how quick the next class is going to be
Yeah.
starting. And it just seems like people are like, from the feedback that I've been getting, and maybe you can speak to the feedback you guys have been getting or the studios that you work with have been getting, it seems like in general, practicing online isn't for everyone. We've certainly had people who are like, I don't really want to do this, or this doesn't really work for me. But I would say like 95% of our feedback, maybe even higher than that, has been like, this has been like the one thing that's keeping me sane right now. Like being able to see my yoga friends like every couple of days has been like so amazing, because it makes me feel like there's some semblance of normalcy in my life and that sort of thing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would say that's been the majority of the feedback as well, is that, not only is it positive that the businesses can still keep going, and people can still offer their practices, but the community, the members who are able to log in and just, yeah, de-stress, unwind, reduce anxiety by practicing. It's so important, and it's huge. I mean, I personally feel that way when I get to take classes, and I'm taking online classes too. It just really is a nice thing. It doesn't completely change your routine. You get to feel like you still have that as part of your life and part of your day. It's something to look forward to. yeah, and it's that moment of connection with people you're excited to see again, and yeah, feel have a little bit of that kind of, yeah, this isn't, it's not quite as normal as taking a regular class maybe for everyone, but it's enough, and it feels like enough to keep going, and to feel like you're really getting the benefits of the practice, even if it's at a distance.
Hey everyone, we're just taking a quick break from the podcast episode to talk about an upcoming training that I am going to be offering. It is a podcast pitch training called How to Be a Great Podcast Guest, and it is happening on May 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern. I have been a podcast host for 6 years now, and over the last couple years of having a couple different podcasts that I'm a part of or that I work on, I have received hundreds and hundreds of pitches for people to be guests on the podcast. And so I have come together with a couple of other yoga podcast friends that you probably know since they've all been on the show. This training is going to be co-led by myself, Amanda McKinney from Marketing Yoga with Confidence, Shannon Crow from the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, and Mado Hesselink from the Yoga Teacher Resource podcast. Between the four of us, we have received so many podcast pitches, and we want to help you learn how to not only just be a podcast guest, but be an awesome podcast guest. Everything starts with the pitch. So we are coming together to teach you tips on how to send successful pitches that lead to interviews, how to get invited back multiple times. After seeing hundreds of pitches come through our inboxes, we've got lots of great tips for you. So in this training, you will learn how to find podcasts to pitch, how to write great pitches that will actually get noticed and responded to. We will talk about pitching mistakes that land your pitch in the trash, what podcast hosts are looking for in a guest, what kind of technology and or equipment you'll need, how to up your chances of getting invited back in the future, and how to leverage your appearance to increase credibility with your own audience. So if you have been thinking about using podcast marketing as a way to get more traction with your business, I would love for you to join us for this training. It's on May 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern. There will be a replay provided after the fact. So if you are interested in learning more, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com/events to get started and to register. If you have any questions, let me know. Once again, it's mbomyoga.com/events. All right, back to the episode. And I'm curious if somebody's listening and they're sort of like, okay, I feel like I'm convinced now that maybe offering my classes online is a good idea and a good way for me to support my community. What are, I guess, some of the first ways that somebody could get started in terms of like getting this all set up?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to punchpass.com, is our main website, and we have a free trial button all over the site, so you can sign up. We have a 2-week free trial, so you have plenty of time to test it out. And I think testing is a huge part of it. It's really good to make sure you give it a go and give it a shot, maybe before going fully live with your customers. But basically, you can sign up for the free trial. And it's a guided trial. So we have a checklist and messages along the way to direct everyone to get set up in the system, including a message that directs them immediately to how to set up with Zoom. So that's a message that comes up right away so that they can, really get started right away. I mean, we've had people, I'd say the majority of people who've signed up for trials in the past 2 months have launched before the trial ends. So people are picking it up really quickly. We have a lot of directions on how to set up and how to get their online classes going so that they can, get their schedule and get started, and make it pretty easy. And the guided trial is definitely a huge part of that. So it's just from punchpass.com, signing up for the trial and getting started.
Amazing. I love that. And if somebody's listening and maybe they already are using, a different software and they're feeling overwhelmed by the idea of like maybe changing softwares or trying a new one. Do you have any tips or recommendations based on, things you've heard that have been working really well for studios, things that have been big challenges for studio owners to keep in mind and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand making a switch right now can be really difficult for people and a little overwhelming. So, certainly that's not something that, everyone has to do right now. A lot of people are finding it the perfect time to make the switch right now because they might have a little extra time in their evenings. They might be running reduced classes, so they might have the time to make the change. But I think the biggest, pieces of advice that we've gotten from all of our users and anyone who's really interacted with us is to just give it a shot and give it a chance. If you don't have to close your studio, we really don't want you to, and I'm sure you don't want to either. So give it a shot with teaching online classes. Try a Facebook Live class for everybody. If you're not quite sure how to do it, if you're feeling a little uncomfortable with getting really in deep with the class, just give it a shot to reach out to the community and offer something, because they'll give you back 100-fold. People really are looking for something like this, and I bet your regulars are looking for something like this, and your past customers are looking for something like this, and anything you can do, give it a shot. People are willing and interested. So regardless of where you're at, if you can keep your studio going by offering something online, it's definitely better than nothing, and people are excited to see it.
Yeah, I really love that. So thanks for sharing that. And I think
Yeah.
that that's exactly it. Like if you're feeling overwhelmed, just set up your phone somewhere where people can see you and just hit go live on it and just start with that. Cause I think sometimes, especially with like videos and stuff, we see stuff that can be so high level. It's very well produced. And I think it's really easy to get in your mind about like, oh, I don't have the right equipment, or I don't have the right software, or I don't have a big enough audience, or I don't have the extra funds right now to invest in this. And I
Hmm.
think that just getting started in some way, supporting your audience, if you feel like, or supporting your students, if you feel like that's something that you're drawn to and want to do, which I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have some interest in it. Just getting started in any way, and then, figuring out kind of the pieces as you go. Like, I don't think that most of us were totally prepared for what this was going to look like. And it sounds like your team was really on top of it, which is amazing. But yeah, for myself personally, as somebody who works with studio owners, I don't know if I ever could have been fully prepared for what this looked like.
I don't think anybody was. I mean, we luckily made some changes really quickly, but you can never really be prepared for something like this, maybe, and maybe that'll change in the future. But yeah, it's you don't need high tech equipment. You don't need special lighting. Yeah, a phone, doing Facebook Live or Instagram Live to give it a go. Even just trying to say, set up a public Zoom call, or a Zoom meeting and share it out on Facebook or any social media that you have, to just have people give it a shot and not be afraid. And honestly, I think the live experience can be a lot easier for people to get started with than trying to do a recorded class and then sharing it afterwards, without any sort of live experience, because you're not going back and editing. You're just letting the class happen like you would in a regular class. And I think that's the casual and comfortable experience people are looking for right now, and anyone can do it. I promise you, anyone can do it, and your people will thank you. Your community will thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think that it's interesting. I mean, you've touched on so much great stuff. One of the things that I wanted to kind of go back to from what you said with the studio in Burlington, that they offered the 1 week special at no cost, which I think is really, great thing to do for your community, as long as you have a paid offering following. I'm
Yep.
not a fan of people who are just everything for free right now. Yoga
Right.
teachers
Right.
still need to eat. But I'm
Exactly.
curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious, like, just kind of from your experience working with yoga studios, can you touch on a little bit of like how people have been doing their pricing models? Like, are people keeping their pricing models the same? Are most of them experimenting with like a trial period and then going into a paid? Are they changing their payment plans? What's that kind of been like?
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing people, yeah, kind of run the gamut here. I am definitely seeing the free option. Usually, I mean, that was definitely to start. That was in early March, and they were giving that a go just so people would feel comfortable and get the feel for it. We're also seeing a lot of people maybe have their regular classes, but then have a public, maybe family friendly class a one day a week, just to have another way to sort of spark interest and offer something to the community while still maintaining their regular pricing and classes. One thing we're definitely seeing is really popular, or people are setting up an online membership, so a special membership where you get access to all online classes for a special price per month. And what they do then is they also connect that to the content library. So not only can they pay, they can sign up for the online classes, the live stream classes, but they can also access the library of recorded classes that may be available to them. So when we're seeing special pricing, it's usually trials, and then again, unless your classes are super reduced or super different from what you're normally doing, we really definitely try to encourage people to keep their pricing competitive, and make sure that they're making their business profitable, or at least being able to stay afloat during this time. But we are seeing some people create special different memberships just specifically for online classes, and I think that can be really popular right now.
Yeah, thanks for touching on that. And that's definitely been, my experience as well. And I think that, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think that creating maybe a special membership or some sort of a trial is a great way to kind of give people a little taste of what's going on. But I did a podcast interview with a woman named Emily Cecil a couple of weeks ago. It's already out on the podcast feed. And she was talking about, she's a private yoga teacher. That's what she specializes in. And, transitioning all of her privates online, or as many clients as, wanted to do private yoga online while we're in this crazy pandemic. And she said something like, who am I to assume that somebody wants a different pricing rate or needs a different pricing rate? She's like, I have relationships with all these people. And if somebody needs support, I trust that they're going to ask me for that. And that's, something similar that we've done at the yoga studio that I work with in Alberta. Is we've kept most of our pricing the same. We have some online packages that people can purchase, and we have a package for people who have been heavily impacted or lost their jobs during the pandemic. And that's something that they need to email and have a conversation with us about. It is available to them, but we're not just assuming that everyone's, been impacted, since people do still have jobs, and people are still very willing and wanting to pay for yoga as well. Like, the generosity that's come out from people during this has been really, really mind blowing in my experience.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I think honestly, we're seeing people who are reaching out and saying, even if someone does have to go on a hold or a pause for a week or so, they're getting their members saying, "Hey, we still want to keep up our membership. We believe in you. We like you. We are enjoying your classes and what you have to offer, and we want to keep going." And that's a great point. You can definitely offer offer options for people who have been furloughed, or are unable to afford the pricing, or maybe are healthcare workers and you want to give them a discounted rate, something along those lines. There are always ways that you can have keep an open communication with those people. But yeah, a lot of people right now would like to, they want to have things that they really care about still be around. I mean, when things go back to, whether they go back to normal or not is certainly a question, but when they get to go back to classes, they like the places that they attend to still be there. And that's where, the pricing, it is really about who you are and what you're offering, because there are a lot of YouTube tutorials and yoga classes that you could take online. And certainly people could have done that before this was happening. But what a lot of people connect to is with the instructor, with the studio, with the vibe, with the community, with the other people taking classes. And that's really, again, what they're paying for and what they're supporting. So if it's a great point. It's not for you to assume that everyone's been affected the same way, and you can be really open and supportive and flexible with the people who are having issues, but you can still, again, give people an opportunity to feel like they are supporting you and your small business and what that means to your city or your town, or wherever you are. I think people like to feel like there's something they can do, something they can help with, and not only for themselves but for other people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, 100%. And, obviously I recognize that a lot of people have been extremely hard hit by this financially, and it's not something that they're able to do. They're not able to, spend extra money or put money into the small businesses in their community. And, fortunately for me, I feel very, very lucky to still be working and still bringing income in. And so something my husband and I have been doing has been trying to support, the small businesses that we love, like the ones that we really hope fare well out of this. And that goes from everything from yoga studios to stores to restaurants, especially, and all that sort of stuff. And you're right, like we don't know what things are going to look like on the other side of this, what quote unquote normal is going to look like. But I think that as like yogis, as yoga practitioners, as people who love yoga, we can come back to our practice of yoga and just tune into that a little bit to make decisions in how we want to support businesses and how we want to practice and how we want to interact. And it was really cool. Like early on in the pandemic, there was an email chain that was forwarded to, you know, the studio owner and the managers, and one of the managers at this one studio that I work with. And it was from a group of our regulars, and they haven't had an email chain going because they go for coffee after class. That's one of their traditions. They come to the class in the morning
Oh.
and then they go for coffee. And it's so amazing. As a teacher, I'm always like, maybe I'll get invited because they just have this cute little posse. Anyways, they had an email chain going that they graciously forwarded to us, that one of them had started, that said, this is my home. This is a place that I feel very welcome. And this is a business that I want to see make it through this. So I'm going to support them as long as I can. And, I would ask you guys to do the same if you're able to financially. And this was before we'd ever said we were putting classes online. This was just like, the weeks kind of mid-March as things were heating up. We weren't sure what was going to happen. We knew something was coming and we were kind of anticipating the switch. But obviously, this person wasn't privy to these background conversations we were having.
Mm.
And it was just really amazing to read that. And of course, I understand that not everyone's in a place to do that, but it was just so touching to hear that, this group of women were all on board with like, yeah, 100%, we're not going to cancel even if we can't practice type thing.
Yeah, and that's what we're hearing. I mean, everyone, especially, yeah, as a practitioner, and what kind of community yoga studios create for people if they're looking for it. It's something it's really special, and it's hard to necessarily, I mean, I love the saying like, this is our home. Like it is, it's another place where you feel just as comfortable hanging out in, your leggings, as you might in your living room, and feeling like you have people who you connect to on a special level, and not wanting to, see that go away. I think that's really been something that a lot of people have been feeling. And we've seen a lot of people maybe kind of offer to the community and say, hey, you can purchase a gift card. Maybe you don't practice here, but somebody who really cares about this place. That's something that people have been publicizing as well, like purchase a gift certificate. If I know a lot of restaurants are doing like something like that. Any small business can do something like that and say, hey, like this is something you can use later, or you can offer to someone who cares. And it's another way to support the places that you really care about. I think everyone's been feeling that way. You realize what really is important and the things that you really miss. And I think a lot of people would really miss their specific studio. And so anything that they can do to help, if they can help, and if they can continue supporting them, they want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I really love it. It just makes me feel so happy and inspired, during this time of stress and anxiety and fear and sickness and all of that stuff. It's nice to have, a little bit of that. And I've loved this conversation with you, Victoria. I'm curious, is there anything else you want to share today? with regards to teaching online, Punchpass, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, one of the things that I think really can appeal to people who are looking for a partner in class management is that we're a small business, and we're a small business who patronizes small businesses. We work with a lot of other small businesses, and a lot of us, either teach or practice yoga or other fitness activities. And we really care about this stuff. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if everybody goes to work and feels the same way we do about our businesses. We really want everyone to succeed, and it's the best thing in the world when we hear that someone is doing better, or they've reconnected with someone because they've been able to offer online classes through Punchpass. It makes my day every time someone lets us know how something's going, and news stories about who they've been able to connect with across the globe because of the online experience. I mean, we really care about it. It's the best thing in the world. It makes my job so amazing, and it's something that we're seeing often. It's not the once in a million. They're a special high tech studio that's making this happen. This is small businesses. That's who we work with. That's who we really want to promote here because of what they do for their community, and what they can offer. We try to do the same for them, and really support them in that way. So, if you do have any questions, we have a chat box on our website, and once you're in the trial, and we're always happy to chat with you, or set up a call, because we want to help you through this time as well. We think it's what you offer is so important, and we want to help you do that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of this information, the success stories, all the info about going online, about Punchpass, and just thank you for the work that you guys are doing. It's, really making it possible for yoga teachers like myself, and all the yoga teachers that are listening to be able to continue teaching, which is such a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely, Amanda. It's an honor to work with yoga studios. Honestly, it really is. I love everything you guys are doing. I think it's incredible to get all the word out there about what people can do to make their classes possible even during a pandemic. So it's been a delight to talk to you as well. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming on. All right, there is the episode of the podcast with Victoria Lovering from Punchpass. I hope that you enjoyed that episode, learned a thing or two, and are at the very least feeling inspired and motivated by this beautiful yoga community that we are so lucky to work in. And on the episode, Victoria shared that you can head on over to punchpass.com. I actually have a special link for you guys as well. It's punchpass.com/MBOM. You can read a little bit what I have to say about Punchpass and why I love them so much. And then you can also try Punchpass for free right from there. And you can actually try Punchpass for free for 2 weeks, and there's no credit card required. So it's not the type of thing where you try it and then all of a sudden you notice like months later that you've been charged for something you haven't been used. You can try it totally free of any commitment. And, as you heard on this episode of the show, they are really great. Their customer service team is outstanding. And one of the things I love about working with and supporting small businesses is that they support small businesses too. So as a small business myself, I love working with other small businesses like Punchpass, Offering Tree, and all the other companies that you hear on the podcast. So once again, that's punchpass.com/MBOM. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, and I'll see you next week.